Well, hello there. Hey guys, it's Jade from Boho Bookworm, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you my June wrap-up part 2. The first part of my June wrap-up was all on the BA Paris books I read throughout the month of June. And these are the rest of them. I'll leave my other video in the description box down below, so you can go check that out if you want to see some of the BA Paris books that I read throughout this month. I feel like I'm really late to the party here. I know it's already like, what is it? Oh, I don't even know what the date is. Being unemployed sucks ass. But I know that it's a bit late for a June wrap-up. For that I am sorry, but better late than never. The first book I really want to speak about today is Something in the Water by Catherine Steadman. I listened to this book on Audible and it's narrated by Catherine Steadman herself, who is an actress from Downton Abbey. The Audible version is absolutely brilliant and I would highly recommend it. The great thing about this book is that it engages you from the very first page. It opens up, and don't worry, all my things are completely spoiler free, so I will not spoil you for this book. So the main character opens the first page with digging a grave, and you're trying to, she's telling you how deep to dig a grave for a human being and why is she digging a grave, and it just like completely hooks you in from the beginning. From there it really slows up significantly as we step back into time to Erin, our main character, and her new husband, who are about to embark on their dream honeymoon to Bora Bora. While they're in Bora Bora, they decide to make the most of it despite being under huge financial distress. They go scuba diving, and that is when they see something in the water that they were definitely not supposed to stumble across. This book is so suspenseful and atmospheric, and the tension in it is just so sky high. There's so much about this book that I absolutely loved. For instance, the supporting characters are all so compelling and so well done. It's just a brilliant creation of characters. They were all very fleshed out and wonderful to read about. But what I loved the most, I think, is Erin as her career. She is a documentary filmmaker and she's busy making a documentary based on prisoners re-entering society after serving their time in jail. And I just love that true crime kind of element to this book. It just added a whole new layer that I just lapped up. However, I will say that Erin's character did annoy me quite a bit. She's extremely reckless, and I do feel that if you aren't prepared for her being a complete and utter idiot, then she has the potential to pretty much ruin this book for you. So you've got to be ready to really just be like, Erin, stop it. She's just fucking annoying, to be dead honest. But furthermore, Peter from Peter Likes Books, I just mentioned him in my favourite booktubers right now video, and he mentioned when he read it, he loved the book too, but he did think that the marketing was done completely incorrectly because, when you think of this book and you look at it, it sounds like it's going to be set in Bora Bora and you're going to be transported to this beautifully exotic location. I can't speak today, I don't know why. Whereas, in reality, there's only a small portion of this book actually set in Bora Bora. So if you want a book that you're going to take to the beach, or if you're cold and you really just want to go somewhere exotic, then just be aware that there's only a small portion of this book that is actually set in Bora Bora, but it's what they find in the water that this book is about. So yes, I did find the ending anticlimactic though. I did find it pretty predictable, and the twist just wasn't shocking for me. I kind of figured it out pretty early on, and yeah, I think it's a really fun book, but I just don't think there was much new in it, if you know what I mean. The next book that I'm going to be talking about is Baby Teeth by Zoe Stage. This is an uncorrected proof copy. This book is about a 7-year-old called Hannah. She's mute and all she really wants is to get mummy out of the picture so that she can have daddy all to herself. Daddy is completely oblivious to the things that this child is doing to get rid of mummy, and it's pretty sadistic. She's a seriously wicked and creepy child. The whole book I just picked up major possession and evil vibes. I think that's what I found most confusing about this book, is that it kind of, at times it reads like it's going to be a YA thriller, but then so it's told from alternating perspectives. It's told from Hannah's point of view, the little 7-year-old girl, so then you get into a 7-year-old's headspace and how she's thinking and stuff, and although it's sadistic, the way it reads is like, oh yeah, mommy's making me toast and stuff, and that makes it seem quite young, but then when you get to the mom's parts of the book, it really is a bit more dark and more well written. So it's a strange book, and I would honestly really actually classify this one as more of a horror than a thriller, or a YA thriller, definitely. It's pretty dark, and the writer, Zoe Stead, she really does have a fearless writing style. She does not shy away from the dark and disturbing world of seriously authentic horror. That said, I did feel like this was a pretty bizarre book and quite improbable at times, and I was left with more questions than answers at the end. Like, I really need a sequel to know what the hell happened in this book. I don't want to give spoilers away, but yeah, you have so many questions when you're finished reading it. Like, was it possession and evil, or, you know, was there some sort of mental illness with this little girl? And it's not touched on, and I wish that she'd done that better, and for that reason I had to give it a 3-star review. I wanted it to have a better conclusion than it did. The next book is one I have already spoken about on my channel, so I'll try and go through this one a little bit faster. That's Don't Believe It by Charlie Donlea. This is about a girl called Grace who's been behind bars for 10 years in a foreign country for murdering her boyfriend. She reaches out to this documentary filmmaker of this immensely popular show about true crime to try and get her to help her reopen her case and look at the evidence, because she is completely convinced that she is innocent. Please help her. It turns out that these two women know each other, so she reopens the case for her, and her case just literally explodes and it becomes this absolute sensation. And then we have to ask, is Grace, is she actually innocent? Is she who really murdered Grace's boyfriend, and has Grace actually been a victim of shocking miscarriage of justice? This book was so exhilarating. My adrenaline was pumping. Often, you know, I'll be just chilling, reading a book, enjoying it, and this one, you know, like, my heart, I don't experience this very often in books, but my heart was like, and I just like wanted to like go, oh my god, what's gonna happen? It was just absolutely insane, and I could not put it down. I freaking loved it. I think in today's day and age, our interest in true crime has really risen, and Charlie Donlea really tapped into that. Like, I loved the documentary true crime element to this book, as I did with Something in the Water. It's just, I've been absolutely obsessed with true crime podcasts, and right now I'm reading I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara, and I'm just absolutely obsessed for some reason right now, and I don't think that obsession is going to go away anytime soon. I found that the author had really done a lot of research for this book. It was just extremely well informed, and I just felt like he knew exactly what he was talking about, from the practicalities and the logistics of making a true crime documentary to the medical side of things, of examining a body and an old case. Even the fact that it's set in St. Lucia, such an exotic place, I felt like I learned a lot about the area too. And, you know, there's no denying it was definitely wonderful to get transported somewhere. I've never read a book set in St. Lucia before, and it was just very exotic and lovely. The author also has this really great ability to sow seeds of doubt in your head for every single character, because every single one of them is questionable in some way or another, and that I found really fun. I would say that this is more of a suspenseful mystery than a thriller, to be honest, and the only reason it lost 1 star for me, I gave it a 4-star review, I would say is because it wasn't as unpredictable as I would have liked it to be. I'm very much looking forward to reading other books from this author though, and just, you know, getting to know him more, because honestly this is one of my favourite books of this year so far, and when I got it I was like, oh yay, like it looks cool, but I didn't actually really like the cover, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll get around to it when I can, and it's turned out to be one of the top 5 books I've read this year so far, so it was a dark night. The next books I actually don't have physical copies of, sorry, something on my throat. I listened to all of these on Audible. The first one I got recommended by the Books in the Freezer podcast, which I love, just FYI. Nosferatu by Joe Hill. And no offense to anyone that loves it and enjoys horror, and especially the girls over at the Books in the Freezer podcast, but this book just sadly wasn't for me. I think I've pretty much decided it's time that I give up on some of these horror books. I'm just much more a thriller person. Nosferatu is about this seriously demented serial killer who kidnaps children and takes them to his wonderful world of Christmasland, but it's kind of really creepy because he actually thinks that he is taking the children somewhere wonderful and he's helping them. I did find that side of it quite interesting in a more psychological way. But then this book really kicks off with him trying to take this little girl who has these really strange powers to escape. Then the book switches to many years later and the girl is all grown up. This killer is now seeking revenge. I know I am probably in the minority here, and I'm actually really proud of myself that I got through the entire audiobook because I think it's about 19 hours long. And I will say that the actual audiobook itself is an absolute masterpiece. It's just such a fantastic, dramatic creation. But overall, I just found that this book was way too fantasy-based for me. I don't like books that are a bit more fantasy, and this one, you know, it has like some magical bike and like a bridge and all. I don't know, I just found it a bit silly. I will say I definitely prefer Joe Hill's writing to Stephen King so far. I haven't read many of Stephen King, but I've read some of his books and I'm just not a fan of it. I think he's far too descriptive, but I do think that there are many similarities between Joe Hill and Stephen King's writing, and Stephen King is obviously his father, so he obviously grew up and has him as a massive inspiration for his own writing, so I get it, but it just comes to the fact that it was just too fantastical to me. I just don't like magical elements in books. One book that was recommended by the Books in the Freezer podcast as well was A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay, and this one I had a much better time with than Nosferatu by Joe Hill. This is a book about the Barretts, whose 14-year-old daughter Marjorie starts to get these really acute symptoms of schizophrenia. As her behaviour worsens and she starts doing pretty impossible things and saying pretty impossible things for her age and knowledge, it's kind of suggested that she might be possessed. Because the family are under financial difficulty, they agree to having their lives documented. The book's told from Marjorie's younger sister's point of view, who years later is being interviewed by this writer. The younger sister is recalling all these events from many years ago, and because she's not as young and naive anymore, she's starting to kind of shed new light on the events that happened. She sees things through a new vantage point. I adored the psychological element to this book. You know, is it possession? Is it schizophrenia? It's that kind of thing that was so fantastic. And I just feel like with Baby Teeth by Zoe Sage, about the little girl who was 7, that I just didn't find the conclusion good enough. It just wasn't done to the best it could have been. Whereas A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay was just absolutely earth-shatteringly fantastic to me. It had so many layers. It wasn't just like a straight up possession story like The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. It is similar to that book, but nowhere near as gory and graphic. So while both Baby Teeth and A Head Full of Ghosts leaves you wondering, is there like this supernatural element, or was it a psychological issue, I just feel like A Head Full of Ghosts did it so much better. The delightful combination of like tension and fear and lies and deceit. It was like suspense and tragedy. It was just so well done. It was also really fun to spot the references to The Exorcist and The Haunting of Hill House and even Salem. It was really enjoyable. It was like we were analysing Marjorie's case against all these, and I just found that quite cool. And the whole like filming this family aspect, it kind of manipulated everything in a way that I found extremely interesting and fun. Like with Baby Teeth, it leaves you with more questions than answers, but I can't explain it. I don't know why this one was so much better. I just felt like the whole book was just so much more worth it in the end. Well, I gave it a 4-star review. I only had one DNF this month, and I don't often DNF books, so this was really sad for me, and to be honest, I will not be able to tell you what it was about because it just didn't have my interest whatsoever. Absolutely hated it. Luckiest Girl Alive by Jessica Knoll. Tried to listen to it on Audible 4 times, fell asleep each time. It just seemed like a massive rant and bitch about the main character's life and how shit it was, and I couldn't handle it, hated it. Bleh. That's what I read. I hope you're well, and let me know what you read throughout the month of June. Have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!